should be seeking to serve people of all abilities and disabilities. Thank you.
Minister, Justin Tomlinson.
Thank you, Sir David. And it's a pleasure to both serve under your chairmanship in this very important debate and to respond to my honourable friend, who is a tireless champion of his constituents in Cheltenham and one of the best parliamentary speakers. And time again, he picks up these incredibly important and relevant topics and champions them here in Parliament, which does genuinely make a difference. And this is predominantly an issue that would be covered by DHCLG and Home Office, but it's with great pleasure that I'm responding as a former Minister for Disabled People and someone who has been personally very active in issues connected to this. And it's great to see that despite it just being a 30-minute debate, there is such a turnout from across the House of MPs who are determined to see improvements in this area. And I recognise that my honourable friend has been active on this issue for a number of years, and that in his speech it came across that he was aware of all of the challenges, the opportunities. He delivered his case in a measured way, he was proactive, and he recognised that sometimes it is complex and that more often than not, these situations that we all want to see avoided are not done intentionally, but through lack of awareness, lack of understanding, and that there are ways that we can look to improve this. And I remember during my time as the Minister for Disabled People that I was asked to appear on Watchdog, the TV programme. I love it. I was very excited. I was starstruck. I wasn't allowed to see the footage, but I was told it was to do with access to venues. And I got to see the footage live on air, and they showed me examples of problems with access. Things where managers in restaurants had turned the disabled toilet into an office. Literally, shelves of books and filing was in the disabled toilet that people were expected to use. And examples of issues with assistance dogs. And I was horrified. And I pledged that we needed to do more. And I organised a round table with representatives of the hospitality industry. And the key message was, it was that lack of awareness, particularly where you have employees who will turn over on a regular basis. So even really good organisations who did training, very quickly those staff have changed. So it's something that needed to be embedded into the culture. And we were able to get senior representatives of many of the major chains to engage, partly because if they didn't turn up, I was going to name them. Always a good way. And I was encouraged by the willingness for them to do this. And I was also delighted to champion the Tourism for All's campaign, that tourism is for everybody, which is to help touring businesses ensure a positive experience for every individual. And this is vital, because it is not only completely unacceptable for disabled people with guide and assistant dogs to be turned away from shops and restaurants in 2018, unless there is a very good reason for doing so. It is also unlawful and makes little economic sense. 1 in 6 people in this country have a disability of some form. Their combined spending power, referred to as the Purple Pound, is estimated at £249 billion per annum. Businesses need to start waking up to this and tailoring their accessibility to the needs of the potential disabled customers, not only because it is right and a legal obligation, but to maximise the business opportunities this will bring. It is a win-win situation. Now, it is more than 20... Yes, very quickly.
Stephen Lloyd.
I thank the Minister for giving way, and I entirely endorse every word he's been saying. I've probably been saying it for, as I say, 20 years. Does the Minister, though, share my concern that despite this, despite the legislation, despite that it's been many, many years now, I am genuinely shocked that the number of people with assistance dogs or guide dogs being turned away or being discriminated against from restaurants or other places like that is going up quite significantly over the last couple of years. There must be a reason, and I would suggest that the reason is it's difficult for them to actually access legal remedies in such a situation.
I thank the honourable member for that point, and I think actually that came partly to the core of my honourable friend for Cheltenham's point, that perhaps it shouldn't be the onus on the individual to have to go through complex, difficult legal channels when this should be a given and it should be enforced doing that. And I am covering that further on into the speech. Now, it's more than 20 years since Parliament first built on the 1995 Disability Discrimination Act by enacting the duty on employers and service providers to make reasonable adjustments for employees and service users. This duty is now enshrined in the Equality Act 2010 and includes a requirement to provide or allow for auxiliary aids, including animals, for disabled people to avoid their being put at a substantial disadvantage compared to people without disabilities. Yet I recognise, very much recognise, the concerns that have been raised, not just by my honourable friend for Cheltenham, but through the interventions, and that this is something that we must consider. Now, part of the potential solution, one of the suggestions put forward was that we could, in effect, replicate the enforcement that carries out within the taxi trade, which does include criminal sanctions, where the police will get involved, where the licensing team will then take that into consideration. And I can absolutely understand why my honourable friend would like to see a more hard-hitting approach. Without it, we wouldn't have been having this debate. Now, we as a government are absolutely committed to review disabled people's access and amend regulations if necessary to improve disabled access to licensed premises, parking and housing. We are receptive to the points that are being made today. Now, there have been calls for the licensing of venues and premises by local authorities to contain certain conditions relating to the satisfaction of reasonable adjustment requirements or for repeat offenders who have refused entry to people with assistance dogs on more than one occasion to have to change their ways in order to renew their licence. Now, I believe the Home Office considers there may be some challenges to doing this. However, they have committed to improving disabled people's access to licensed premises as part of the alcohol strategy that is currently being reviewed. And this work will include understanding the scope of the challenges facing disabled people and possible practical solutions. Everything that has been raised today will be fed into that, and I will be asking my Home Office colleagues to personally meet with my honourable friend for Cheltenham to talk through his proactive and what I feel are very measured suggestions. Yes, very quickly.
On that point, in terms of the local authorities becoming more engaged and having more responsibilities, in Lewisham East, we've seen local government cuts since 2010 of £165 million, and with half the size of the council. Would you agree that we would therefore need to invest within our local authorities, our local government, to be able to fulfil duties such as this?
I thank the honourable member for her intervention. I would strongly suggest that her local authority talks to my honourable friend from Angus's local authority about how they've been able to proactively share best practice, and that's something that we can all learn lessons from. Now, part of this work of reviewing the alcohol strategy will engage with the Office for Disability Issues, bringing their expertise, their network of support from various disability charities to scope out this work and understand how best to engage formally with disabled people's organisations and other representative groups. I am very encouraged by this move by the government on this very important issue. And in the meantime, we also welcome the Women and Equality Select Committee's current inquiry into enforcement of the Equality Act 2010. This is timely, as this again links into our commitment to improve and strengthen enforcement of equality laws so that businesses who deny people a service are properly investigated and rightly held to account. So David, in conclusion, I think this has been a really constructive, helpful, timely and measured debate today. All of these suggestions will filter in. It's an absolute priority for this government to improve the situation, and I thank all of their members for their support in this vital area.